Howdy, good day, welcome one and all to the show. Today I am doing an exploration, and I will start with what we're told is Babylon, way in the Middle East on the Euphrates. And as always, like and subscribe if you appreciate this alternative research and you want to support me, help me procure a vehicle, whatever. I'll start a Patreon, I'll link a Patreon, we'll get it going. Anyways, when I was a kid I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I wanted to be an archaeologist. But I ended up being an artist. And indeed, I've had many professions that have required that skillful eye to detail. And I went looking for the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. But instead I found this painting. And I just want to look at this and have it as a starting point. Now, alternatively, this could be the best representation of a timeline that we could conceive this day. No numbers, just a merge, a circle of transformation. I assume that because looking at this, I can determine, since we haven't been in the Age of Aquarius according to Hindu myths since the dawn of mankind, we are here in the beginning again. But that's just a theory, an alternative theory. Now, when I typed in the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and I landed in the ruins of Babylon, I could have started my research, done what I'm told, and looked it up. But what I saw before me was a reconstruction. Apparently, Saddam Hussein had great efforts made to dig out and reconstruct, supposedly controversially, these ruins, and it said he used unoriginal brick and constructed in ways that it might ruin it, might not last. It was very interesting. Apparently, archaeologists and the World Heritage Foundations did not agree with the way he was doing things. He reconstructed the Ishtar Gate, the Museum of Nebuchadnezzar, and some other stuff. Various things along the processional causeway. Some of the site was used as a military bunker and was damaged, and after the displacement of Husan, it was used by the US as a military bunker. So, supposedly, he used different bricks. And I think that's what drew me here today. Besides all the myths from Christianity, we got these bricks with cuneiform on. Now, these suckers seem to last for how much all the area that they have been in was bombed, supposedly. These are some amazing, amazing bricks. And of course, we all like to study bricks, the alternative architecture studies. So if we're so good at translating them, we can tell that that brick, it lasted forever, anything, radiation blowing up, and on it we could read that the customer was unhappy because he got the wrong copper. You just imagine him just scripting out this complaint on a brick, tossing it at the delivery boy. Now, just think of that again. How much time and effort it would take to grab a brick, maybe you got some on your construction site, if that's what you're doing, and you take it and you have to either shape it, or if it's already a brick form, you just put your complaint in cuneiform, and then you have to fire that. That takes a while, even if the fire's still going in around. And then pulling it out, you gotta toss it straight to the delivery boy's hands from this kiln, right? And then he's gonna walk it where? Got some magical street that can disappear and reappear anywhere, all that walking. But they did it. They had all that time and nowhere to be, insulated copper. But if you listen to the history of Babylonians, Samaritans, Assyrians, all of that taking place, there is a brief intervention in war with supposed gods, but there's a lot of confusion around that. Anyways, we're going to be looking at Babylon from the satellite, but before we do that, I want to point out a quick similarity that I've noticed. Some others may have too, pointed out the detailing that brutalism and Art Deco seem to be close related to both Aztec Mayan styles and Babylonian styles. I know that this could suggest many branching ideas and theories of alternative research, but it's also important to point out that you can't ignore the artistic detailing references and relations to these architecture styles. Moving on, when I was first looking at satellite images, I was looking for evidence of the electric universe geology and scarification and deposits of electricity. While looking to disprove this electric universe theory, I fell into a rabbit hole of hazardous information and incognito hazards. And now, with this new electric universe eyes and this other perspective on architecture, I now see the shape and foundation of our realm very differently. And here, we have a river where two rivers meet, triangle of canals, interesting names all around. This river seems dry, it's Nile, but sure enough, we see all the symmetry and we see a really good triangle if you really look at the canals with the river right here. Zoom in on it. Now, Babylon isn't a city. It kind of looks really empty right here in the center, but you see a triangle of mounds, these circle mounds. We get in, we see the ruins of Babylon. And if we haven't run enough off our checklist, here is a fairground, probably with a big Ferris wheel. And the whole city that has been excavated, here you go. There's the Museum of Nebuchadnezzar, there's the Progressional Causeway, and there's this maze-like construction polygonal work. Let's see if it depixelizes for you guys. A lot looks really burnt out, but a lot looks still buried, even unexcavated, perhaps shielded from all of the warfare. But if we look up any of the histories, we will soon learn that there were thousands, probably millions upon millions of tunnels throughout not only this region of the realm, but many, especially under ruins. Just marvelous, real maze. And supposedly, he didn't do it right, according to the Heritage Foundation. That's not the way you're supposed to inherit things. Apparently they did not like his form of brutalism. I mean, it looks like it might have been that already. And here we have the Temple of Babylon that I think is open. This is a bit older. I think it's less scrap metal than the newer one, but we see this brutalism right on the spiral. Really contrast the squares, circles, curves. Got it right next to the river. The dock, beautiful garden. Looks a little unkept. Pretty green. Spiral is pretty grown out. Go over here, see the canal. Coming in from the Nile. This looks like a runway next to it, I don't know. And here we go. Queen's Park. There was a Ferris wheel, but it's not loading right now. Here is the mural from the beginning, and that was inside the Temple of Babylon we saw in that first spiral mound. All those pictures. And here we look at our second one, it's surrounded by water. Check. Same strange features, but it is suspiciously unvegetated, surrounded by an artificial lake. I bet they'll call this an artificial mound. I wonder if it was melted, if it looked like this, or something, I don't know. I don't know, you tell me. It'd be awesome to get some on-site exploration done on this. Tell me, does this look melted to you? Just a little. I don't know. Let's continue. We'll go down south to the final of our triad. Follow the canals. And here we go. Another mud cake. cookie you pulled out of the oven, kind of looking like a spiral shell. Seashell. I see a seashell. You kind of see some nodules too going up, almost look like they were towers, maybe. See some on the other one too. Go back and look at it in a sec. Let's take a ground view, I guess. No walking the man here. Did anybody notice any geologically precise foundations underneath this? There's definitely water around it. Mighty fine placement and coincidence, right? I think we need to take another look at the other one. Let's, no, not that one. Yes. What purpose could this be? It's hard to tell. There's nothing left on the surface. It's melted. It just looks like mud. Who knows if there's another palace beneath this? Or was there one above it? Interesting to note that they got plants to grow on when they decided to, right? Shells. Who sees seashells? On the fort shore. And now we take a good look at the middle. This is pretty blown out. Probably damaged. I don't know. I used to look for electrical scarring, and I feel like there's a foundation burnt out there. I can't tell if this is a house or an oil well down there, but this looks like a neat little canal behind the ruins. You'll never guess what they say this is. I guess I'll give you a few minutes before it just pops on up there. Where are we? Where are we? Have you seen this before? Well, let's give this a little check. Yes, the Ziggurat of Babel. Tower o' Babel. This does not look in scale size to this. Not at all. This is the ground picture. This does not look like this. This looks like a lot of things. I mean, I feel like I've seen ditches like this everywhere. I feel like I've seen tanks like this everywhere. Not like this, made out of bricks. This is the biblical depiction, or some of them. And this looks like, well, more like that, a melted tower. This definitely looks like a tower at some point. Let's get higher up. Yep, that was a tower, but that's not what we're looking at in the satellite pictures. This is just an example. Many to find across the realm, and this almost reminds me of the Tower of Pisa, very Romanesque, but this is a rendition of what a sky-high tower would look like if it were built. And again, just not matching up to the Tower of Babel, although I will note, someone did point out to me that Babylon and Babel were two different places. Again, I don't know. I'm not sure, but this is what I used to look at for electric geology, the desert, the painted desert. This is what I find. Scattered, you follow water, and you find these tanks. Now, I could do a whole different video on this right now, but I think a moment of silence is due. Are these water features the remains of what can be founded today? Let me know. What's familiar and what's unfamiliar about it. Go and find some around your neighborhood. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. We move up the Euphrates to Baghdad. And here we find another triangle of spiral mounds. Takes a little effort to find one of them. But here's the center. We see a zoo, parks, bustling city. Looks like a football field. Maybe a memorial. And man, is that a roundabout? I hate roundabouts. I always wondered why we had some somewhere. There's some in Sedona. I really don't like them. Anyways, here we have a thriving city, obviously. And we zoom out, and there's probably some canals, either buried or leading under here. Maybe they're tunnels, I don't know. But there's definitely the mounds. It's in a slightly different orientation. Now, it's going to take me pointing out, but this is the first one, the mosque. I'm not going to try to name it because it changes as I zoom in too, so this is this giant, elegant, old world looking mosque. Now, I could dig into the history, or I could branch off into an alternative theory, or I can just look at some pictures, and we can see there's cranes, and it isn't finished. It's quite beautiful, quite huge. The scale is unrepresented because we don't even have a person or anything up to the ground level to compare it to, hardly. This could be a mosque for giants for all we know. But zooming in, we do find some interesting details. And we notice it looks uncannily melted, like something Z-pinched the hell out of it. You zoom in, it looks like sand. I can't tell if it's brick or what. And this is huge on top of it. And here we see one of the cranes that is actually coming out of it on this side, like they've torn it off. They're in the middle of replacing it. But how do you explain that damage? Look at this one up here, even. I mean, I can't tell if it's stairs inside, if there's trees, or what. And even the top in the middle and the center looks damaged. And so we try to take a better look into the ground, a better side view pictures. It took some digging. So we see some of them, they do look damaged. In some of these pictures, they don't. It's very confusing on what they try to depict happened to these domes. But we see more of the distance and scale of the foundation, and here it really looks melted, like right off the side, and the top looks unfinished. Who knows what state this is in now, if it was ever even finished to begin with, because this looks much the state it has been since, theoretically, a branching reset. Who knows? It'd be great to get some on-site research. And moving on. It's a quick one, right? Let's go up north, where there's a lot of industry development, some high towers, but uncannily there's some barren, burnt-out land, and here we have what looks like some giant pillars. Clicking around will tell you these are the unfinished remains of a mosque that Saddam also tried to build. Doesn't look like he got much far. It looks like he really dug out that foundation, though. That's what I feel like we're seeing. And it's basically a henge. Yes. This guy, hinging stone, hinging wood on stone. Here is a theoretical complication of what a Stonehenge model would be if it was filled out for occupation. Very interesting. Indeed, it doesn't look like they got very far in hinging anything too much on the stones of this foundation. Who knows what they found and what he controversially built up, but it remains in completion today amongst the vast infrastructure of this ancient city. And here is just more electrical branching theory laying over top of what the supposed function of these configurations of this site may have been. So I ask you to keep an open, branching heart, and pause if you need to during these slides and comparisons. I found this really awesome researcher, goes by the YouTube as Land of Chem, and the reason why I bring this all up is because of the way it reminded me of the relations on the Smith chart and how people use it, and the way I see it in geometry and electrical scarring and just all kinds of ruins. The Smith chart is really something to familiarize yourself with when you start to look into sacred geometry and electric patterns and all that fun stuff. Again, go check out this guy's YouTube. It's Land of Chem at about episode 100. The greatest episode, or the first best episode we all make, right? He comes to the conclusion that electricity is involved, and I think he's opening up his electric universe eyes, and we're not sure if he's there yet. Hopefully we'll reach out and talk to him about it soon. Before we get to the final mound, though, I want to interject with a topic. Not all hinges are sundials, and not everything that's a sundial is just a sundial. There's a misconception with astroastrology to being just sundials or sun representations. Yes, this is all the stuff you need to know for precisions, but there's so many other alignments with the stars and everything else that goes into astroastrology that people overlook and downplay so much, and I'm about to show you before we get into our next topic. Trust me, that was important to point out. And we go to the final right bottom triad in our mound. Though this one has been very, very dug out or preserved, or who knows what was here and what was inherited and what was controversially reconstructed. And yet again, we have another structure built dedicated by Saddam Hussein. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Monument. Unknown Soldier Monument. Yeah, one of those. Do we need to point out the geologically precise foundation? Look in here? Perhaps there were canals at one point? I don't know. Are there some perhaps mechanical functions going on in this structure? Perhaps. Maybe take for yourself a few moments to ponder before I bring out my inspector kit of Hermeticism and astroastrology. Let's zoom in here to get a good look at the scale. Looks like you just drive your car up in here and chill. There's a spiral tower. There's these what do they look like? All these pointed ends around the edge, like a big giant gear. It's really, really interesting. Almost brutalist style. Anyone else seen seashells? 12 segments. Yep. Vast infrastructure. Looks like a really burnt out plane to the side. The Prime Minister's guest house and a bunch of embassies. Alright, you want to get a little ground view, a little history on it? Here you go. I looked it up. It was interesting. Very, very interesting. Neat. Spiral tower, just like, the others that can be found in other places, but not at the Ziggurat Bible. Here's some other monuments, I guess. Kind of not as grandeur. And looking it up, we get some very unique features and details. We get a cross-reference with Unknown Soldier Rotunda in our nation. Side of the realm, we see a fountain, we see a clam, we see a giant waffle iron pan. It's a clam. And what is pearled under that clam? It is, instead of a circle, it's a square. It is a square with 7 layers, 7 different metals, according to Islamic religion, representing one of their gods, perhaps one of those ones we know. Let's see, closer look and evaluation. And I got a little bored of talking at this part, so I just decided to tell you that this eagle and this clam, these people, is a Native American myth representation. It reminds me of a lot of the other of the Native American ones I've heard growing up on this side of the realm. Don't know what else to say before I get even deeper into the hermetic studies of this particular monument. Yes, that's what this is. I wonder if there's an underground component. Yes, more comparisons. And yes, it is like pyramid teeth underneath that thing. And yes, it is a spiral, very colorful tower. And yes, it is a war monument. So what else can we see? What representations? Like, how do we find our way through myth and symbolism in this monument? And we are told it is just an unknown soldier. And what is so unknown about him? So remember what I said earlier, it's not always just a sundial. Obviously, the spiral tower is a sundial. And there are many other details going on with this thing. As we can see, there's a crescent and a circle, the moon, a shell, these angles. What can we where can we position ourselves, since we can't go there, to figure out what is there? We gotta find the ecliptic. We gotta find where all the planets go over. You know, we gotta watch the constellations, and we gotta see. And if we were on the ground, if we could find more symbols to point us to which planets, maybe it wouldn't be planetary symbols like in astrology. Maybe it would be representations of gods, because as we know in electric geology and astrology and electric eyes, the gods were planets. All gods started as planets. It's very uncanny to find that. But, you know, do your own branching research. Alternatively, think on your own. All I'm saying is, we've got to find the representations of the planets. And so we will look for the godlike aspects and symbols that we see. And if we were there, we could see on the horizon. And what other things beyond. But this does not give us much from this 3D map. So what else do we have available to us? Well, we're kind of look inward for some genosis, I guess. And I think it took me a bit before I had to go back while I was editing. Finally put this all together and figure out the unknown soldier residing in this tomb. But first I gotta thank the Electric View and them guiding me to that hinge artist, because this reminds me of one of those, almost like there could be a whole underground shelter, but we have this pillar which looks like a spear, so I'm going to interpret that as Mars, Aries, whatever, god of war. And let's say Shell's Venus. Okay, 2 planets, 2 gods, sun, sundial, sun god. I don't know what else, at least until I started looking for representations. And then I decided to look up Mercury. And so I did that, and I looked up Mercury, and it came to my mind, this fact that I remember this year is that since Mercury is so close to the sun and revolves around it so fast, it is at any point in time, the closest planet to every other planet. Constantly, consistently throughout the year, all the time, since it's constantly revolving around the sun. It is closer to the sun when we may be on the other side of it compared to most planets, since it revolves around it so fast. And that is probably why they called Mercury the messenger of the gods. And we really got to think about that for a second. And just to show where Mercury fits in, I had to put on my Cosmo Electro specs. And according to all the information, and the lines and stuff on this particular monument, I theorize alternatively on a branch that perhaps this monument marks the crossing of Mercury's nodes, between us and Mercury's nodes. What does that mean? The nodes of Mercury's magnetic fields as it relates to the elliptic plane across. So when we connect, or when we pass through direct lines of connection, because there's also the solar wind and the way the solar currents wrap from planet to planet. It's very interesting. I'll do a video on solar wind and weather conditions very soon. It is on the list, and it is a very important component to all of these alternative branching theories, is to watch the solar weather, which, in my opinion and findings, kind of connects to weather down here. As above, so below. And fair warning, information hazard, cognito flashing hazard. If any of the comparative images I'm going to go through make you dizzy, sorry. Please consider subscribing, and I will definitely stop it with that. Thank you very much for watching. Just watch a little bit of comparative collaging that I have presented for my point, for my alternative theory point. No, that's not it. It's just a theory, an alternative theory. Jinkies, I've solved it, gang. It was Mercury all along. And it kind of makes me wonder if you go to any other unknown soldier tombs or unknown soldier monuments, whatever you want to call them, if you might just find more Mercury references there. Who knows? He was the god of wisdom, and Hermeticism is, by practice, very mystical, misleading, confusing, spiritual, I don't know. But there's a lot going on in the world today, and I think that it's more important now to remember that everybody's different, and they all have different perspectives, interpretations of the same thing, the same very human thing. And there are those who would go through great lengths to dehumanize people, many different ways, many different reasons. But if we try to follow any teaching, it should be that when electromagnetism and CMEs and who knows what kind of electrical interferences the universe gives us, our spirit was born from that. We are part of it. And Genosis is remembering that. And there may be people out there that aren't awake, but here we can see how very common depictions of Mercury kind of reminds me of Moroni from the temples of the LDS, but who knows how much we can talk about that on YouTube. The context will warrant a completely different video, but I plan to do any topic that relates to this and other gods and stuff and relate them back to the electric universe have many in plan, so just let me know which ones you want soon. If I don't already have them out or on the list, they are coming up. As always, keep your hearts and your minds open, and your eyes, your electric eyes. And now here's some video footage I hope will inspire you to go check out Lana Chem's channel.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me. And since you're all here and engaged in this sort of inquiry and listening to this sort of lecture, I assume that you're all on the process of waking up. Or else you're teasing yourselves with some kind of flirtation with waking up, which you're not serious about. But I assume maybe you are not serious but sincere, that you are ready to wake up. So then, when you're in the way of waking up and finding out who you really are, what you do is what the whole universe is doing at the place you call here and now. You are something the whole universe is doing in the same way that a wave is something that the whole ocean is doing. The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe. So then, when you die, you're not going to have to put up with everlasting non-existence, because that's not an experience. A lot of people are afraid.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good night. Stay gold.
That when they die, they're going to be locked up in a dark room forever. And sort of undergo that. In other words, we all know very well that after people die, other people are born. And they're all you. Only you can only experience it one at a time. Everybody is I. You all know you're you. And wheresoever beings exist throughout all galaxies, it doesn't make any difference. You are all of them. And when they come into being, that's you coming into being. You know that very well. Only you don't have to remember the past in the same way you don't have to think about how you work your thyroid gland or whatever else it is in your organism. You don't have to know how to shine the sun. You just do it. Like you breathe. Doesn't it really astonish you that you are this fantastically complex thing? And that you're doing all of this and you never had any education in how to do it?